What's up, everybody? This is your girl Jams from WJMS Radio, here for Inside Brooklyn, powered by the Brooklyn Commons and also Trendy Trippin'. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. This is the second season of this show, and we are diving into not just the creatives inside the Brooklyn Commons, but also creatives in and around Brooklyn, the city itself. So that means we've opened up our horizons quite a bit to all kinds of interesting individuals. And I'm so excited today because we have a very special guest. I'm going to call this guy a tech entrepreneur, a tech genius, basically, just based on the things that he's accomplished so far in his life. But I have special guest Andre Peguero with us, and he is the founder of 3 Aces Studio, and I'm really, really excited because he's got some really awesome tech things that he's done. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and give a little bit of his background to you guys so you can get a feel of who he is and where he came from. So Andres, why don't you let everybody know sort of your background and your upbringing?
So I was born in the Dominican Republic, but I kind of grew up between North Brooklyn and the DR, so my parents kind of like traveled between. It's a very common thing. It's like a very transnational culture, I guess. So between that, I kind of developed a passion for technology kind of early, but it wasn't necessarily born just from like, hey, I want to learn how to code. It was kind of just curiosity. Mm-hmm. So seeing like, okay, so watching cartoons, right? I was one of those kids that quickly asked the question, how was it made, right? And then, I always seem to have this passion for creating. Doesn't matter whether it's like technology, writing a book, creating a story. It was always this passion just to make something that isn't real and people can enjoy it. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. You were probably one of those kids that drove your parents crazy, asking them questions that they were like, I don't know the answer to this question. Like, I can assume that you were probably one of those kids that's like, why does this work this way? And your parents are like, I don't know.
It was kind of interesting because it was the case for, it would have been the case if it wasn't for the fact that I was also kind of weird and loved, I used to love hanging out with older people. Like this happened in the Dominican Republic, like, and even actually here too, there would be this old neighbor, mm-hmm. no kids or anyone would be interested in talking to them. But for some reason, I used to love hearing stories. I love history, so like they would just tell me all this. It seemed to be no end to the knowledge they had. So I would ask questions, and always. My dad is an engineer, so I would ask him a lot of questions related to things building things. And in my head, I was like, how do they know this? Like, there's no way I can do it in a lifetime,
Yeah.
But if you keep doing it over and over and over again, eventually you surprise yourself, and then you know as much as them. Yeah.
It's actually interesting you say that because I laugh because now everyone's like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Back in the day, even though, I'm not that old, I can still say back in the day. But back in the day, we were on MySpace. And on MySpace, we were coding. Like, we were doing this stuff. We were, like, typing in HTML codes and putting music players on our sites and making it so that people couldn't turn off the music. And we were really actually coding at a young age. And we got so far away from that with these new social media sites because they've sort of taken the control back. But it's interesting because coding and, sort of STEM careers are not as, you just don't see so many minorities in those fields. And I'm not sure why, because, we're really brilliant, to be honest. And looking at the stuff you've done, you had your own YouTube channel at age 12, which is insane.
It was the MySpace days.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, So, tell me a little bit about what was on that page. Like, what were you actually doing on YouTube?
So, the reason why I even found YouTube is I actually had just moved to the United States permanently. Like, that was the first time I ever studied here. Mm-hmm. And I met a friend, and he somehow was really good with computers. Like, and he wasn't necessarily a coder, but he was just really good at doing everything else, right?
Yeah.
Fact of the matter, right now, he works in like infrastructure. So, he sort of introduced me that, computers can be used for more than playing games. And you're right, things like MySpace, I remember playing with HTML to customize it, and it sort of developed this obsession for control. So there's reasons why I don't like using my phone or an iPad. It's because they take control away from me. If I cannot, go into terminal and be able to access things that otherwise I wouldn't be able to, I just don't feel comfortable, right?
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't like using your iPad and your phone, what exactly do you use?
Like, I like to use my computer, okay. And I'm always there. And you said the YouTube channel was actually a product of for the first time ever, I realized that I could do the things that I would see on TV, like, you know, those cartoons, those shows, and another interesting concept appeared. You can make money online, right?
Yeah.
I remember it's the first time I've ever heard of like getting paid because of advertising, right? It's the first time that I didn't even think that was possible. I thought it was magic. I was like, how can you get paid because people see this, right?
Yeah.
And there were not, YouTube was still, I think at that time it was still YouTube. It was not owned by Google. It probably was purchased like a year or so after. But you know, we started creating content, and it wasn't too long before we actually would go viral in our own school, like, and people would know us, and yeah, it was fun.
That's crazy.
A couple dollars every month. Like
yeah,
$5,
so you monetized and all that, and I mean, it says that it had to be shut down because of copyright and stuff like that. But have you thought about maybe starting up another channel? Do you have another channel currently?
I do not actually. I don't produce any sort of content, which is it's probably a product of just kind of being busy. But
yeah.
we do have like email lists, and we do send you know, content out to people that way. But not in the modern form of social media, not any of that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad. Like it's you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like your grassroots. That's where you started from.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, the shutdown of the channel was because, you know, I was a kid, and you know, we were making, you know, $5, $10 a month, and we figured out something that we didn't know was illegal at the time. And it was like, what if you started streaming actual TV shows?
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, it was not streaming because it wasn't live, but what if you just uploaded a show?
Yeah.
Cartoons and stuff. People can watch it. Well, we realized that the views just shot up to the, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions sometimes, right? And the ad money grew.
Yeah.
Now, when we got shut down, I was like, what the hell is a copyright?
Right. What is that?
What is that? And you know, that would lead to many things, like, you know, a friend of mine later on hacking, and then the FBI coming along and seeing, you know, because we just didn't know, you know, we were just doing things, and we never knew that, because it's the same about like making money online.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't believe it, so we didn't know that there was like actual risk associated and security and things like that.
That's insane. FBI and all that. That's not how I expected that story to turn.
No, yeah, things just can go, you know, wild.
So fast forwarding a little bit, a couple years, you know, at 17, you launched your first tech company. So where did the idea for that come from? Like, I mean, from age 12 having a YouTube channel to 5 years later, you now have your own tech company. So there was some critical transitions in your life that happened. So walk us through a little bit of what they were, and, you know, what the steps were to start your tech company.
Sure. So it pretty much happened roughly at the age of 15. I went in, you know, it was actually in downtown Brooklyn. It was in high school. You know, it was raining outside, and this short, you know, Iraqi kid, just fresh out of Iraq, like post-war, right? And he has a laptop, which is kind of rare to see people bring laptops to school. And he's like, can I borrow your umbrella? Because it was raining, and my laptop is here. And he mentioned, we started talking, and I told him, you know, I design and I create animations and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, I make calculators and word processors. And I'm like, what do you mean you make calculators? And he showed me the next day, shows me this calculator he made and this software. And I'm like, you're making it real, right? And again, my thing just to make things come to life, right? I was like, so you can create software. How do you do that? And then he says, well, coding. And I was already pretty savvy with computers, but then he introduced even more control. Yeah. Yeah, and that just, I was like, I want to learn. Teach me. And at the time, you know, if you were learning how to code then, it wasn't a cool thing. Now you're like a quarterback, right? Yeah. But, you know,
you're important now.
Back then, you were like the weird kid, you know. Yeah. So, you know, he started teaching me, and I started learning on my own. And he taught me how to learn on my own, because that's how he did it, right? So went online, and between the two of us, you know, we work together till this day, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And we actually kind of that led me to just know how to build my own things, you know.
That's awesome.
Or part of it, you know. I always would partner up to complement my own skills. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Yeah, like that's really, really cool. So yeah, 17 you did that, and now 19, you know, 2 years later, you've managed to found an ed tech startup and raise $10,000 in your first week during college, which is crazy. And you did a joint venture with facial recognition that same year. So clearly, you're onto things like you're working before the curve. Like, so before all these things are really a thing, you're like getting into them. So that's kind of exciting because you're sort of like it's like we're talking to a future, like somebody who looks into the future. So I mean, between 17 and 19, what happened there? I mean, you're still in contact with the gentleman that introduced you to coding and to the tech company.
And I try to build this social network that I saw that Facebook and I remember that MSN was around and AIM.
Oh man,
and those things, right?
Way back, I forgot.
And, and I see that.
Oh, man.
What I see is again, I was seeing actually into the future again, and I said, okay, so you have to download software to do a video call.
Yeah.
What if you can just do it in the browser? Now we call it the cloud, right?
Yep.
And now it's normal to go on Hangouts and do that. So that's kind of like where and that actually was solely responsible for me winning a scholarship to go to college. And then I had to stop because college sort of like, it got a little wild, and
for
at least 2 years, so 17 to 19, right? And then I just get bored again, and I'm like, okay, let's build something. And we developed this concept of a management platform for teachers, right? Mm-hmm. That we saw flaws. We actually took a class, and then we learned from going to schools. And then we were like, okay, so we know this fact. It was me and my friend. It's like, we know that this is wrong. What if we just fix it through software? And we needed, at the time, I was like, I'm not going to be able to code this by myself.
Yeah.
So, I went to Trinity College, a lot of wealthy individuals there, and a lot of wealthy individuals that want to do things, but usually
need your expertise.
Yeah, they just needed someone to they want to be part of something big. So we put out the campaign out. We're like, we're doing this. Who's in? A week later, there's like close to 10 grand in funding, and it got done. And something interesting happened. The same guy, Mohan, who had taught me how to code, had already built this entire new thing with facial recognition, or he was in the making for that. And I had the other side of it, which is the cloud side of it. At the time, both cloud and facial recognition, or AI, and image processing was a very early thing. So we were like, what if we just do a joint venture? And we just merged into one company. And when that happened, offers started raining, meaning that people wanted to purchase just straight up technology. We actually went to the Clinton Global Initiative, being alumni, because we just submitted our company and what we were doing, and we got to go to St. Louis at the time. And basically, that became a very big part of my college sort of experience. Very large team though, because I raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that actually ended up becoming a problem later on.
Oh, why?
So
if you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm allowed to talk about it.
Okay.
So we had roughly 10 people, and as a college student, it's not an excuse I'm saying, but between me trying to keep up with college in terms of like classes, and not even that, because I started skipping a lot of classes. At that point, I just didn't care, right? But enough to just pass. The problem was that social things. I would just want to still enjoy college, and it was just Trinity's like a bubble. So in a way, I was distracted between this business and that, and then I had a team of 10 people to take care of, 10 partners. Just imagine that.
Yeah. And
it was just kind of like rough keeping them together. And eventually we had to basically split into two companies. Basically after that, I just decided not to be part of it. Yeah.
Are they still up and running?
No, they're not. I eventually partnered with the other side, the facial recognition side, because I found it to be more interesting.
Yeah. And
that's the one actually my friend was still on it.
Okay. Yeah. So, it says, first time millionaire on paper, and then, another 2 years. 2 years is kind of your thing, I see. Like, every 2 years you make monumental leaps forward, I see. But, at 22, you founded a daily fantasy sports app. Now, that's big, because I know fantasy sports is, like, a major thing. Like, one of my guy friends does fantasy football, and he's like, I got, like, $6,000. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, yeah, $6,000. I'm like, for predicting football? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, teach me, because this is ridiculous, and I need to be in on it. Like, that's pretty impressive. So tell us about that venture, and and also you can, I guess, put it also with the software agency that you started as well.
Sure. It's so pretty much what ends up happening is that I leave college, and
did you graduate or did you
I graduated.
Okay.
I actually did graduate.
Gotta specify.
Funny enough, I was majoring in economics, and I was like, how can I boost my GPA? Started taking computer science classes. Easy. And the thing is that I leave and I probably get a job in sales because I wanted to learn how to sell. So it's like, best place to learn is just go at it, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good at it. At the time, I was just not very motivated to do it. And I leave like a month later, and a friend of mine calls me. He's just like your friend, he's very good with fantasy. He loves sports. I don't really like them. I like playing them, but I don't like watching sports, right? So he tells me like this concept of daily fantasy, not just fantasy, but fantasy, games that can happen, on a daily basis or weekly basis, depending on the sport, and with friends. So not play with random people, but bet with friends.
Yeah.
And we just spent a whole year building an app and launching it and growing it. And unfortunately, funding became a problem, meaning that it was very hard to sustain.
Yeah.
And in an attempt to sustain it, I did something that I never thought would be possible for some reason.
Is this going to involve the FBI too?
No FBI, but just instead of building my own products, why don't you just go build it for someone else?
Okay.
And that's how 3 Aces was born, actually.
Okay.
As an agency that would build software for other people, other companies, and we got pretty good at that. Then the next phase of 3 Aces became something non-software related. It's like I just learned how to write copy and become a good salesman, right? And eventually that is truly where 3 Aces became the software and copywriting company, right? And that's currently now, basically.
Great. So, all right. So we got your background up to where you are today, and all your major milestones here. So give the audience a little bit of an understanding of what 3 Aces actually does. What is your your mission statement or your vision statement, whatever you want to call it. But let the audience know what the company does.
Sure. So we pretty much specialize in mobile first development, and it doesn't mean that we only develop mobile apps. It means that we develop software that when we first start concepting the idea, it is meant to be viewed on a mobile device and then to a desktop. I mean, we're assuming that most people right now, almost 50% of them are viewing from some sort of mobile device.
Yep.
So we just we'll make sure that always the software we deliver is ready. Now, the software could range from banner ads, so those digital banner ads animated that you see on the internet, to full-blown websites and sometimes apps, right?
Okay.
And pretty much our takeaway is that we've structured the way we work in such a way that we can almost operate near 24/7. So there's a you won't be able to tell you actually think they're working all night.
Day,
Not really, people are just starting at different times.
Yeah.
And it's always taking the risk away, always on a performance base, basically. We're always willing to say, we'll demo it, well, you want to build this app? We'll test this thing, see if it's possible. So, we don't take everyone, right? And because of that, we've been able to grow very fast, just because we try to take the risk away from the client as much as we can.
That's awesome. We're gonna have to wrap after after this. I have some ideas that I might need to run past you in terms of the radio station. But so, as I'm gonna call you a tech junkie, if that's okay, because it seems like that's appropriate. As a tech junkie, what new age technology coming out is exciting for you? Like, what is stuff that you're like, oh man, like what's stuff that the inner Andres is like, yes, this is cool. Like, this is gonna be great.
I am actually very interested right now in OTT marketing, mainly just because I want to see how far we can go into giving just normal businesses a chance to advertise on TV. I mean, creating a huge, very high-end produced commercial is very expensive.
Yeah.
But what if you can just start placing banners on, streaming, when you're streaming video in the middle of like that? And I think that's a very underrated thing. So I always look at those things and not necessarily what's on, like the hype, but kind of like, I think this could bring a lot of value and fix a lot of problems, Yeah. Because that's ultimately what coding and marketing and business is. It's all about solving very, very difficult problems that people have.
So, in terms of getting banners and ads and stuff placed on people's on videos and streaming things like that, what it's reminding me of is like obviously Facebook, because Facebook. But it seems like they put these ads on their videos now. Like the banners don't bother me. I don't mind the banner on the video. That's cool. YouTube does it all the time. I don't mind that at all. I hate this idea of the Facebook ads where it's like your video will continue after this ad and you can't navigate away from that page. You can't do anything. Like you have to sit. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to look at this ad. I'm going to put my phone down or I'm going to turn my head just because I want to be a rebel. So that's the kind of stuff that I think about. Is it the same kind of thing or are you just like just the stationary banners?
Actually, the banner will come during the show in the corner or something like that. So it basically...
Like a watermark.
Yeah, kind of like a watermark. And it'll either animate or do something sort of funny or entertaining to you, but it quickly goes away. And actually, if you pause it, then you pause your show.
Yeah.
So it's kind of meant to be not as obstructive, but kind of like
integrated with.
It's still integrated, and I want to see how integrated it can get.
Oh, so that's like Super Bowl type stuff. So when you're watching the Super Bowl in the corner of the thing, you might see like a Peanuts character come by and kick a football, and like it'll be like Pepsi or something like that.
Yep.
That's cool. Okay, cool. Yeah. I see what you're talking about now.
What you were talking about.
Yeah, like I know. Like now, when you see like the little animations in the corner of the screen, and they're like,
Yep. And they're meant to not distract you from your show, but maybe a little bit.
A temporary, just glance down, like, oh, hey, Pepsi, and then come back.
I'm wondering how integrated we can get. Like maybe we match it to the concept of the show. Yeah. It'll be interesting just to see that evolve.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Now I see where you're going with that. All right, so you're 24 right now, I'm assuming, right?
24, yeah.
So if we're sticking with your 2-year jump here, what's next on the horizon for you? Like, what do you have coming up on the horizon that you can talk about?
Sure, yeah. So pretty much from the last time, you're right. There seems to be a pattern of 2 years. So the last time I built a software that I actually own 100%, right, or majority share with my company, with somebody that I work with, was 2 years ago.
There's that number again.
Yeah, and we just happened to be recently, this time we did a little more market research. We're getting a little bit more, we're becoming adults here, not just coming up with the first idea that comes to mind, but we went out and tested it with people to see what they thought. It seems that the two things that we do at 3 Aces is just really good copywriting and really good software needs to be combined.
Okay.
So we are right now on the infancy stage, but going from infancy to development for us is very fast, though you should probably see within 2 months. We want to launch a copywriting software that will blend the best out there, basically, and the best techniques out there, and just put it to people and give people access, because there's a lot of copywriters out there, not very good ones. So what if these people had a tool that actually enables them to write the best possible copy, or even better, you're not a copywriter, and all of a sudden you get on this app and you just learn how to do it. We guide you through it and generate the copy that works for your industry. Mm-hmm. And over time, with collecting data, we'll know exactly what works for your industry and then help someone else in a similar situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of what you're doing with 3 Aces and things like that, what are some things that you guys struggle with? Because it seems like from going through this conversation with you, it seems like there's no task that is too difficult for you guys. But there's got to be some things that are harder to do than others. So for you guys, what has been some major stumbling points or obstacles that you had to overcome for what you're doing in any of your...
So a lot of it has to do with, sometimes you said it, how can you predict the future, right?
Yeah.
I don't. I just test so much.
I'm not convinced of what you just said.
No, we don't. We test a lot.
Okay.
And it's the rate of failure that we do. So we do a lot of R&D. And sometimes for our clients, when they have this big idea, we don't know if it's possible. And that's why we started aligning ourselves on performance. Kind of like, if it works, pay us. If it doesn't work, thanks for your time. Down the line, we'll work again together. But a lot of it is like R&D. And at first, you're like always fearing, like, if I test too much, I'm probably going to run out of money, or we're going to be in a bad financial situation. But we always seem to hit it right there, and then it always levels up, right? Mm-hmm. And so far, I'm starting to even wonder, is this something that can be changed? But it's worrisome, but I don't think it can, because it is on our essence, to test. So it's always there as a fear.
So the next thing is going to be how to get around the testing of things.
It's just how to do it faster with less risk.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, and I think time is the only thing that you could give it. As resources pile up, you can probably become less fearful of that. And then the fear is, if there's a lot of resources, are we going to be resourceful, at all? Yeah. And that is the question, are we going to become these guys that stop innovating, and hopefully not. That's why I'm more about keeping a small number of quality clients than just growing my team.
Yeah.
You know, I always try to keep it grow slowly. You know?
Slowly but substantially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as we're winding down the end of the show here, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Any anecdotes or any stories? Anything about Three Aces?
Sure.
Anything we may have missed going over the conversation now that you want to share with the audience?
So at Three Aces, we're pretty good at like getting very large clients. In fact, we have this concept of just starting from the top.
Mm-hmm.
We always aim, when we look at an industry, we always aim to get the highest possible client we can get. And then when you have that person or a company, right? What happens is that you can just trickle down and start owning the vast majority of the market. So how did we do that? How do we do that currently right now? So actually, I would like to actually share a link that if somebody who's in Brooklyn seeing this podcast, right? If they go to that link, they'll get a book. That book tells you exactly what we do.
So what I'll have you do is, I'm obviously going to write it down, but we have like a YouTube channel that we put this on and like social media and all that. So share your link with the audience, also your contact information where they can get in touch with you and follow you, all that kind of stuff. And we'll share that information on the social media so that we can get the information out.
So the URL is basically 3 aces.studio/Brooklyn.
Okay.
And that's where the landing page will be.
Got it. And is it active right now? Like if we send it out now, is it active or is it going to be up and running?
It'll be up and running probably by the time the podcast goes out.
Okay.
But pretty much it's 100% free, and you know, I think it's an interesting strategy because it's through email. So meaning that there is no associated cost of the marketing itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to hire people to do this for you, that's your call. But if you're an early entrepreneur, you can do it yourself.
Okay.
And since there's very little cost, right, it allows you to, you know, early on just ramp up, and eventually once you're ready to go the paid route and, you know, pay for all of this can probably take you to maybe 6 figures if you do it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm sure that probably piqued a lot of interest with people that are listening or watching the podcast. So where can people find you, follow you, and what is your contact information for people to get in touch?
Sure. So I'll actually share my company email. I respond pretty fast most of the time. But pretty much it's Andrus at 3aces.studio, so the same URL. And any inquiries or anything, you know, you guys can email me there.
Great.
I'll probably be sharing an email list that you might want to subscribe to if you want to receive more content and valuable information, maybe try out the software that we launch, and they can help you. We're focusing on a lot of software to help build businesses and a lot of training, providing training plus software. So, you know, there's always a good opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Always,
yeah.
for sure. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today and taking the time to tell your story, talk about all the things you're doing. Your track record is extremely impressive. I can't wait to see what you do in the next 2 years. I hope that I get to see you around the building a little bit more, and yeah, we're gonna bust it up because I have some ideas that I want to bounce off you and see what you think. But yeah, definitely thank you for coming out today and for being with us. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for Inside Brooklyn.